have some blue collar people, and so I have a smattering of the general population.
Well, John Adams is away. Abigail was running the whole business, farm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
She wasn't for a couple of months, I think it was.
She's a tough cookie. She was complaining to him about it too, because one of
Definitely doesn't come across as a wallflower.
one of the workers that she was going to,
They're on there.
one of the workers she was going to count on got ill, and he couldn't work for her, doing some farming and that sort of thing. So she was complaining to John Adams, she's going to have to get somebody else. It's going to cost some money, So it's interesting stuff. And I'm learning stuff too as I do it.
So here we go.
Yeah, I think we're good to get started here. Well, for anyone who's online and in person, thank you for coming this evening to our presentation. Talking about the signage that's coming. I will be passing around a sign-in sheet with, you can fill in your first and last name. I also would like to start with the starting up an email list again. So if you're interested in getting more direct contact with me about our upcoming events, as well as some of the other history activities that we have going on in the library, please just check that box and leave your email for me so I can start sending those out. Maybe I kind of want to see if I want to do that each week, or if I want to do that every so often, just to talk about some of the work that we have going on that relates to local history here in South Brunswick. So tonight, this presentation will highlight the work done to bring greater interpretation to South Brunswick through the creation and installation of signage that offers an understandable yet engaging look at our local history. And for anyone who is new, my name is Kellen Amy. I am the now local history librarian here at the library. I started in January. I grew up in South Brunswick, went to school here, and still live here in Kendall Park. So been really great being able to come back to South Brunswick and help serve the community that I grew up in. So thank you again for coming here. And so I think we'll get started. So as you know, South Brunswick is a community that is very large and very diverse, but one thing that we don't have is something like a Main Street, like a Princeton, where everything is kind of put in the same space, where historic buildings are next to businesses and so on. So the initial goals of this project, and you may look around and see these big, beautiful signs laying around the room, which are things we're going to talk about today. And our initial goals of creating interpretive signage in South Brunswick was to recognize the 250th and our revolutionary past while celebrating the earliest events in our region that relate to the 250th. So we hoped within this project to establish a reasonable amount of signage and events that can be created quickly as the year goes on. As the transition period over the last few months, we've had to kind of catch up with things. And so we wanted to get things out as soon as we can. And then we also wanted to find an accessible location for the community to view and recognize our past in an engaging way. And so on the screen, I kind of just have a general map of South Brunswick, as well as the goals that I just listed out for our project. Because South Brunswick, again, we don't have a main street. We don't have a lot of areas where the entire community can get together at the same time. So what small places can we find that? And this presentation will hopefully dive more into that. And then I want to bring in your feedback to see what sites in South Brunswick we should try to celebrate more this year in the 250th and going forward, because this will be an ongoing project. And I have members of the Historic Preservation Commission here as well, which can offer more insight into that, which will be really great to be able to work together. So going forward, this project so far over the last few months has been collaborative, and we've been working with the Historic Preservation Commission as well as a partnership here at the South Brunswick Public Library. The text for our initial signage was created by Ed Building, who is here, our town historian, and the sign layout, design, and imagery was created by myself, Helen Amy. And so I just wanted to also thank within this project the South Brunswick Town Council and those involved within the township outside of that, as well as such as other township employees who have helped us accomplish additional tasks like printing and picking up laminated pieces of paper at Staples. And without their help, we would not be in the successful position that we are in today. And we hope to continue to work collaboratively going forward. And by having this space for the community to talk about the work that we're doing and places in South Brunswick that we should honor, I hope that we can continue to make this long list of contributors known as we go forward. So our starting point for an easily accessible area in South Brunswick is the Freedom Trail in Monmouth Junction. And that was the starting point we chose for our signs initially. These signs would hopefully go along this walking/biking path in Monmouth Junction. And on the map there, you can kind of see the 4.9-ish mile distance of the Freedom Trail on the right, starting on Ridge Road and going all the way up to, behind Route 1. We wanted to also reflect on the historic significance of the piece of land that the trail runs through. As some of you may know, the Longbridge Farm area covers an extensive period of where that trail kind of snakes through, and then whichever other buildings had existed around Heathcote Brook back in the day, especially on the other side of Route 1, as the trails don't connect, but those stories at one time work together. So we also wanted to find something that's easily accessible. We know if some of you go through Monmouth Junction that this place can be parked. You can park there and walk from one end depending on where you go. And it is township property that is easily accessible, that we can invite visitors on a set path to follow a story on our signs as we go along.
Hey, does anybody have any questions about Longbridge Farm? Because Kellen mentioned it and you may or may not be familiar with it. Is there anything you're curious about Longbridge Farm? I can give you some.
Yeah, she never heard of it, so.
Oh, okay,
You
good.
can jump in.
That's what I'm here.
If you want. You can jump in.
Okay, we can start at the beginning. Now, Longbridge Farm was the name of the general area, which is now called Monmouth Junction. So if you can imagine, most of Monmouth Junction was at one time one farm. And back in those days, they called those plantations. We tend to associate the word plantation with the South, the cotton plantations. But the Dutch were very familiar with using plantation as the name for farm. And so that, since we had a lot of Dutch in the area, the thing of calling a farm a plantation was the way to go. That was the name of it. Now, the Longbridge Farm was known for raising horses, and it was what they call a stud farm. And so farmers near and far would bring their mares to get impregnated by the male horses, the stallions that were at Longbridge Farm. And the most famous one, and that one was a famous one, was Bay Richmond. And during the Revolutionary War, and it's an interesting fact about South Brunswick that not too many people know about, the farmers were cooperating in hiding Bay Richmond so that the British wouldn't get the horse. Because a prize stallion on a stud farm was a big deal. And there's a lot of big money involved in that. So anyway, that farm probably started in the 1730s. And it was started by the Lawrence family. And they were famous in Philadelphia. Both the father and the son took turns being mayor of Philadelphia for a while. And during the Revolutionary War, the Lawrences were not in South Brunswick. The Lawrences were under house arrest because the British, remember, had occupied Philadelphia for a while. And during that time, 1778 and late 1777, they were under house arrest. And they only used the house family-wise during the summer. It was their summer retreat. Now, what does that imply? It implies that the Lawrences were very wealthy, extremely wealthy, and this was their getaway spot. So you can imagine a wealthy family from Philadelphia, genteel, high class, lots of money, and they're going to come to South Brunswick for the summer. It sort of conjures up in your imagination sort of an interesting scene. But what happens is that when the Lawrences aren't there, guess who's running the farm? Who's in charge? Thomas Wetherill, who is the nephew of John Wetherill, who is the most famous person during the Revolutionary War. And we'll probably talk about John Wetherill later. But Thomas Wetherill was running the Wetherill Tavern in Terry's domain, what they call Crossroads, which is now called Dayton. And so Thomas Wetherell was overseeing the Long Ridge Farm, which was most of Monmouth Junction during the Revolutionary War. Because with the Lawrences under house arrest, they couldn't get out in the summer even. So when they finally got here, then the war had progressed and the British were sort of out of the area. But that gives you a little background on Long Ridge Farm. They don't know exactly where the mansion was, but where the Freedom Trail starts is probably a good start to go find the mansion. If you find the mansion, tell us.
Yes.
Because we'd like to know. There is a house that's being restored there, and that was probably, I think the foundation does go back to the time when the Lawrence family was here, but I don't think that was the mansion house.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, the resource survey does not say that is likely not the house. It is a house on the property, but
Yeah,
not the house.
yeah. Remember, with that many acres, you're talking about, I would say, safely, you could say 1,600 acres for that one farm. And on that, you would have many houses. Because you'd have overseers, they'd have those houses, there's certain people who'd be working there would have houses. So take your pick as far as some of the old houses.
The key in terms of the participation in the Revolutionary War, in June 1778, the Continental Army had come out of Valley Forge. The English were moving and withdrawing from Philadelphia, marching through New Jersey to go back to New York. The Continental Army, after Valley Forge, had become, quote, an army, and they were chasing the British. They were here for one night on the way to the Battle of Monmouth. And so that literally puts us where we're sitting in this important place.
Right.
But they were here one day, or
I would say
about 6,000 soldiers.
Yeah, if you were going to rank the events, like with the signage and all that, I would say that the Army staying overnight at Long Ridge Farm was probably your second most important event. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll get.
We're going to talk about all those events soon. Yeah.
But if I were to rank them, I would say what John is talking about is happening in 1778. And I would say that's your number 2 event. Okay, that will be a sign for that.
And we're going to jump right into that. So in our process throughout the last few months, we came up with 6 signs, which are again scattered around the room, that relate to the events of the American Revolutionary period. And through our various discussions, we hope to place at least 4 signs on the Freedom Trail initially, gather feedback on the success and the possibilities of whether we want to continue and complete this revolutionary story and maybe add the last 2 going forward. What's great is these signs, which I will pass around shortly, are easily transportable and easy to replicate. I would have grabbed the actual signpost, but it is absolutely massive and in another part of the library. If you'd like to see it, let me know. But we wanted to create something that is engaging and readable for all of our audiences, from younger audiences, older audiences, people coming up with an anecdote of history that can be easily understood about our area that might not have been understood before. So to start off, we have our first event, which is Washington's first march through South Brunswick. And I will pass this on. I know you've seen this already, John, but if you guys would like to take a look, slide this around the table, feel free to read it. This was our first event. And again, Ed came up with all of the text for these signs. And the text reads, newly appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, George Washington, passed in what is now South Brunswick Township, formerly the South Ward, on June 23rd, 1775. He and his entourage, which included Charles Lee, Thomas Mifflin, Philip Schuyler, Joseph Reed, and William Lee, were headed to Cambridge, Massachusetts to take command of American forces gathering there. A number of delegates to the Continental Congress who were returning home also accompanied Washington. Captain Abram Marco and his Philadelphia troop of force served as escort up to the Connecticut border. They hastened along the King's Highway, presently called Route 27, in order to reach New Brunswick by nightfall. So again, there's a general, historical anecdote here.
The map is the map is. Look at the map.
And what we try to do, what John's pointing to,
What is the name of that town today?
Princeton.
Yeah. So back then it was Princetown.
And Trenchtown, and with all of these signs, as you'll see as we go
A lot of
along,
research going.
we want to find historic materials, primary sources that are accurate from or as close to the event that we could. So this map here is from 1775, and the citation, which is a little small to read on the screen, this map is from the Library of Congress. And so we took this scan and we were able to add it in to the imagery, and that's kind of the standard that we hope to set going forward, to be able to bring some type of primary source to the community to help understand how maps have changed over time, where you can read Middlesex County and be able to see Kingston and Brunswick and Princetown and Trentown and Cranberry and so on. To be able to, understand where that came from. Is there any other things about this event that you want to add?
Yeah, chock full, lots. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. First of all, you notice 1775. So as we're celebrating 2026 and the birth of the country in 1776, South Brunswick is playing a very important role before 1776. Because Washington's march to join his army and get it organized, the army's up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, he's in Philadelphia, he's appointed the commander-in-chief, and he has to get across New Jersey and up to New England in order to join his army. And he has to get up there as quickly as possible. And if you check Washington's diary, he was delayed. I wish he had given the details as to why he was delayed, because he was delayed somewhere between Trenton and New Brunswick. And still to this day, we don't know what the delay was. I don't know if it was the hill, where the Amish market is, because that could have easily slowed him down. The weather was fairly good. It was sort of rainy, misty. And I wrote a mystery about this because I turned it into an assassination attempt on George Washington. And that's called 13 Stripes. And if you want to purchase it, you can go to Barnes and Noble and check it out. But it's called 13 Stripes. And it goes through this whole thing. A thing that you may not know the name William Lee. Is anybody familiar with William Lee? You know William Lee?
Well, you're talking about the general from the army?
Not the general, no. William Lee was known in the beginning of the war as Billy Lee.
Oh.
And that was George Washington's top slave,
Yes.
who was with him during the whole war. And he needs recognition for what he did during the war because he was very loyal to George Washington. He was the one who carried Washington's sword. He was the one that kept Washington's papers in order. He was the one that held the spyglass when George Washington didn't need his spyglass. And he was taking care of him, grooming him, and so forth. So without Billy Lee, Washington would be half the man that he was, as far as I'm concerned. And Billy Lee happened to be a better horseman than Washington was. And Washington was known as a very good horseman, but Billy Lee was even better. And Billy Lee was in charge of the horses when Washington wasn't on his horse. And so he's a very important person in this whole time. And he's right there at the beginning in 1775.
He's also a slave, isn't he?
He's a slave. Yeah. And here's an unknown fact that you will probably have nightmares about. Remember George Washington and the thing you learned in elementary school about his false teeth? And he had wooden teeth and so forth. Well, the dentist back in Virginia, early on, they wanted to get teeth to put in a bridge to put in George Washington's mouth. They wanted real teeth. They turned to George Washington's slaves and they extracted teeth from the slaves to make a bridge for George Washington. Billy Lee donated one of his teeth.
You certainly didn't learn that in school.
No, you didn't learn that in school.
I think I saw them in Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
There's a display case with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, that's right. That's right. Well, see, that confirms that I'm not giving you malarkey.
What was your question, Terry?
So I did have a question about the map. So you see the Dutch church basically on
Yeah, that's the
27.
Dutch Reformed Church.
So is that still standing?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that would be in the mile run area.
Right, right.
Border. with-
Well, well, that's where the name comes from.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
6 Mile
So
Run
you said
Church.
6 Mile Run State, Six Mile
church.
Run Church is the Dutch church.
That's the
Yes.
Dutch Reformed Church.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
That's kind of a cool reference.
It is.
Because it's still
Yes.
It was early on, it was down by 6 Mile Run, but the one that's there now is far south of 6 Mile Run, but they kept the name.
Yeah. So
So it's a little misleading.
Is the Presbyterian Church on that line? And the Kingston Presbyterian Church, because I remember it dates from the 17.
The Kingston Presbyterian Church, you know where the cemetery is? And there's that little road that cuts behind the
Yeah.
cemetery. Well, across the street from there, that's where the original Presbyterian.
and that's
Yeah.
the Methodist Episcopal
There was
Church.
the
now.
Methodist Church.
Yeah, the Presbyterian one is on 27. The Methodist
Yeah, that-
is
that
on the
one- that
little
was later.
offshoot.
But
Yeah,
neither show up on that.
No, they
That was
don't.
after the war.
And if we there's tons of maps, so if we check more, they may show. But kind of diving more into the mile run area, we have the retreat camps. Did I grab the wrong one? I think I grabbed the wrong one. Sorry, I have them in the wrong order.
It's the same.
We have the retreat campsite, which talks about Washington's pass again through South Brunswick. And the text here reads,
Yes. And this is cranberries spelled differently. Oh, yeah.
on December 1st, 1776, General George Washington ordered his remaining soldiers to abandon New Brunswick and continue retreating south on the King's Highway. Enemy forces had arrived on the far bank of the Raritan River and were preparing to cross. A rear guard of artillery was left behind to delay the enemy's crossing and allow the American military to distance itself from British and Hessian forces. Somewhere between 6 Mile Run and 9 Mile Run is in a wooded area adjoining farmland. A campsite was established for the night. Notables present included George Washington, Lord Sterling, Nathaniel Greene, Hugh Mercer, Israel Putnam, William S. Livingston, Edward Hand, Nathaniel Hurd, James Monroe, Aaron Burr, Thomas Mifflin, Alexander Hamilton, and Thomas Paine. Before dawn, the retreating army continued marching across New Jersey in order to reach safety in Pennsylvania.
So they're retreating from the British are chasing them out of Fort Lee, northern Jersey, chasing them down to the Trenton.
Right. They, and Washington took a stand in New Brunswick, but it didn't work. And Alexander Hamilton was left behind to fire cannon at the British who hadn't crossed the Raritan River yet. And so he was in the rear guard. That allowed time for Washington to move his army down, and where this campsite is, they don't know exactly where it was. But it was on the King's Highway, which would be Route 27. And my speculation is that it's somewhere between 9 Mile Run and 6 Mile Run. And so where the church is sort of like in the middle of that area. So if they had camped out around the church, I think they took a farm field or two. And so one of the plantations nearby the church is probably where the army stayed. But it was a safe distance from New Brunswick, and so that's where they decided to do that.
Yeah,
And they were dead tired at the time too.
And what I really enjoy from this map is from 1781, but I think it shows the best route from a different perspective. The bottom right of the picture is New Brunswick, and the road going from bottom right to top middle is Route 27 / the King's Highway. And if you look at the map again, you can see on the tributaries that go along what is now Route 27, you can see the mile runs as they go. And so at some point within that, we can know that they passed through that, and we have documentation of that. And I'll pass that along in case you didn't get if you didn't get a good look at it, you can see.
What was the version of this, of these?
We don't. I can print smaller versions if you.
Explain to that.
Yeah, we have the little, thing, you know, we can make copies of that.
Yeah, if you scan the QR code there, so which is something we're working on, we have all of these maps available online as well.
Yeah.
What's the lower road called?
The lower road now is called Cranberry South River Road.
But on the map here, I can't seem to read it.
Oh, it's George's Road on that.
George's Road is not the lower road.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, the one on this picture specifically.
Yeah, that's George.
I can't make out.
Is there like a approximate start time and end time?
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, Terry, the lower road would be under Lawrence Brook.
Yeah. So this is
1775. Does it go up to,
So it is.
Our last date is
You
1770.
sort of have to hold it this way.
That's our.
In other words,
and it's planned to go
Brunswick
further?
would be here.
Right now, we've decided to focus on this 250th story of the
And then it gets
revolution,
down here,
like
and then
as
it
far as
gets
a military perspective through South Brunswick. But the time period will be covered if we
really hit crossroads.
are to discuss a certain house in South Brunswick. That will also be covered. But this is a more broad perspective that we came up with.
Like the Revolutionary War,
And it's going to
the past since September
So the
2nd,
connection to Brunswick Creek.
and that's probably Rockingham. Or in the short period of time, that Princeton was the capital.
Does anybody have any questions on the people that are mentioned?
I believe, it's been confirmed that what we call Route 27 today was in fact the Native American trail.
Yes, that's the Assunpink Trail.
So long before the Europeans, people who lived
Long
here.
before, well, you're talking about thousands of years. There are basically two trails that go through South Brunswick. They say George's Road was a Native American trail too, but the Assunpink Trail connected the Raritan River to the Delaware River. And that was important because, you know, the Native Americans are the Lenni Lenape, and they have various sub-tribes. And so the commerce between the sub-tribes was along that route. And it was the junctures of it, the ends of it were very important. What was going on at the falls in Trenton and what was going on in the river was a big deal. And so to go across there, you needed a trail. So that was the Assunpink Trail. And that's named after the Assunpink Creek. And I think Assunpink translates to place to find stones. And then the George's Road, I think that was the Wickatunk Trail. I'm not sure, I might be wrong. But that was a part of a trail that went to the Jersey Shore. And the Native Americans were getting shells and stuff to use as their wampum, their money. And they got that from the shore. And then they would bring that back and trade with the other Native Americans and so forth. So the two trails are very important to the Native Americans.
Yeah. And for our so going on now, our next topic in our sequence here is the Council on Horseback, discussing the more pretty well known fact of George Washington meeting in the Kingston area. The text here reads, after defeating the British at Princeton on January 3rd, 1777, George Washington marched his exhausted army north to Kingston, New Jersey. From a vantage point on the road above the bridge across the Millstone River, near the Presbyterian Church, the commander-in-chief and his top officers, Nathaniel Green, John Sullivan, Arthur St. Clair, Henry Knox, John Cadwalader, Thomas Mifflin, and Joseph Reed held a council on horseback to quickly consider which option to take. It came down to attacking the British supply base in New Brunswick or removing to secure winter quarters at Morristown. Washington took the advice of the majority, avoided a major conflict against the pursuing force led by General Cornwallis, and headed toward Rocky Hill and then Pluckerman in order to reach the safety of Morristown. Cornwallis abandoned his pursuit and he continued north to New Brunswick. Thus, a prolonged war for independence was not guaranteed, and a chance for victory.
So this military dislocation actually exists. It's less than, 8 minutes from where we sit.
Now, this is your number one event. This is the big event that happened in South Brunswick. Remember, I said that the Longbridge Farm stayover was number 2. This council on horseback changed the tenor and the direction that the war was going in. Washington for a while wanted to attack New Brunswick. He wanted to do it, but his generals talked him out of it. The problem was the men were so exhausted. Remember, they had fought 2 battles in Trenton. They had done the night march to the Battle of Princeton. Then they had to fight the Battle of Princeton. And they're exhausted by the time they cross the Millstone River and get up that hill in Kingston. And several of the generals who were in that council, I think there was maybe about a dozen of them altogether, maybe 10 to 12. And he did it democratically. And so the majority won. And the decision was, we need to rest the troops. Let's head north and west. And so that's why they headed towards Pluckerman. And so they headed towards Rocky Hill and Griggstown. There's a couple of places where they probably crossed the Millstone River. And Cornwallis is right hot on their tail. He's about an hour or 2 behind Washington when Washington crosses the Millstone River. So Washington has to make a decision really quick. He sends his carpenters down to the bridge, which we'll talk about later. And the carpenters sunder the bridge so that the British will have difficulty getting over the bridge. And that bridge is still there. It's tucked away, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But anyway, that gave Washington a couple of hours because Cornwallis was a dilly-daller. He was a general that took his time, and he was very particular. And he would 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, and Washington took advantage of that. So their army, Washington's army, got clear away. Cornwallis, he's concerned about the war chest in New Brunswick. That was the war chest to pay the British soldiers. And the British soldiers, there are only about 200 of them left in New Brunswick. So if Washington had some rested military people, and he did have militiamen, Somerset militiamen, they had about 200 of them, they could have easily gone into New Brunswick and they could have really caused some damage and maybe gotten that war chest. But that was a chance that was not taken. Anyway, Cornwallis got back to New Brunswick. The war chest was saved. So Cornwallis had his goal, but he didn't get Washington and he didn't defeat the British Army. And what did this indicate? This council on horseback indicated we were going to have a long war. This was not going to be a short war. The Sly Fox had won again. That's George Washington. That was his nickname, the Sly Fox.
And as Ed had mentioned previously, which an event that goes along with the Council on Horseback is the sundering of the Millstone River Bridge, which happened on the same day, same time. And at the halfway point between Philadelphia and New York, a wooden bridge over the Millstone River was constructed in 1705. A second bridge replaced the first in 1738. It was made of stone with wood planking. On January 3rd, 1777, George Washington and his Continentals crossed over the bridge after their victory at Princeton. Upon reaching the high ground, the commander-in-chief ordered Captain Thomas Rodney of the Dover Light Infantry and a number of carpenters to remove the planking, thereby sundering the bridge. This rendered the span temporarily impassable for pursuing enemy forces led by General Cornwallis. This allowed the American forces to add at least 2 hours of separation time from the enemy. Without sundering the bridge, the Americans would probably have been overtaken and defeated by a larger, superior force. And what I really find interesting on this map, which is from 1777, and the map is called Plan of the Operations of General Washington Against the King's Troops in New Jersey, is when you look at the map, it says Camp of General Washington on January the 3rd. And then below that, you see bridge broken down by General Washington on the 3rd. And having this kind of evidence of this action taking place on a map from the period, I think is really cool because it allows you to know that this event happened and that it was documented and that we have Kingstown here with the subsequent buildings that are labeled as rectangles and the army formations along the map. Knowing that's where they added camps during that time period.
So if you go over to Route 27, the DNR Canal, Unitarian Restaurant, and you go down 27, you make a small left and go into the park where you can park your car, the lot tender house. Well, once you park your car, the bridge is just 100 feet down the road. You literally, there's a sign there.
And that bridge was obviously the main point of transportation for a period of time until the contemporary bridge that we all drive on today was constructed a number of years ago. But again, I think this map is one of the more interesting visuals that we do have, because it shows that the action took place and that we have the Millstone River still processing through that time, and that evidence of Washington being there is written down on the primary source. So, and again, if anyone scans that QR code, it takes you to our local history section of the site, where all of our maps are and will be put up with the corresponding text, and the link to that primary resource is viewable. So if you ever want to look at the map on your own and zoom in and take a look around, often these screenshots are like a square inch of a map of New Jersey that I'm able to zoom in on. And if you zoom out, you can see all of New Jersey or all of Middlesex County. And it's really unique to kind of, if you want to just see more parts of the state as well. So we're trying to make that accessible.
Of course, this predates our Carnegie Lake as well.
It does, yes. No Carnegie Lake, but just the rivers and the canal, obviously, that did not exist then either.
Yeah, it's a good photo op down there too, because if you scan out where Carnegie Lake is in the mill and the Millstone River coming and so forth, and the bridge itself, as long as you don't take a shot of the new bridge, Route 27, you're like put back in time. It's a place in time that's been preserved pretty well.
Yeah, but that was an important meeting.
Yep.
Of the Council on Horseback.
Yeah, that's why I rank it as the #1 event.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
if I understand, the American Continentals have defeated first train, second train, then Princeton.
Right.
The British were not happy.
If you want to read about the broken bridge and the Council on Horseback, you can only buy this at the Lock Tender's house in Kingston, because they own it.
They're open on the weekends.
Yeah, when I write, I don't make any money. I always donate my money or give it to a worthy cause. But the Kingston Historical Society sells these, and you can get this at the Lock Tender's house, which is right near the bridge. And if you don't like it, you can throw it in the Millstone River.
Next up, we have Striker Skirmish, talking a little bit more about areas local to Route 27 specifically, and the text reads, on the night of January 3rd, 1777, also the 4th, Captain John Striker led a company of 20 Somerset County militia troop of force against 200 British regulars and wagoners at 10 Mile Run along the King's Highway. 27. A number of General Cornwallis's baggage wagons had broken down here under the cover of darkness. Stryker's men dismounted, spread out to form a semicircle in order to trick the wagon guards. At Stryker's signal, the score of men gave a shout and fired one volley. The British, fearing an ambush by a superior force, abandoned the wagons and fled up the road toward New Brunswick. The captured wagons, containing much needed woolen clothing, blankets, and other supplies, once repaired, were taken to the Continental Army, which was on its way to Morristown. And this map, again, very interesting, because this map is a piece of a map that is actually currently on display at Firestone Library in Princeton University. Firestone Library does temporary exhibits that are really, really interesting with all the primary sources. They have a really great 250th exhibit going up through most of July. This map is there. I went and saw it a few weeks ago. I actually was like, oh my gosh, the map I was looking at online from Princeton's website is sitting in front of me. It's super cool. But the map is actually horizontal. I rotated it, and you can read some of the names. And at the top, you can see it says 10 Mile Brook on this map. Because this map is actually from 1762. So over time, we can assume that more houses came about. But this was the best representation of this part of our area during that time.
Back then, because you sound like you've seen exhibits, what was the material? Was it the map itself? What type of material was it?
Much colonial paper changed over the years, but early paper, and the reason why it survives for so long, is a still parchment type of paper. So I actually did a paper on this in college, which is crazy you asked me this, because I'm pulling back some crazy, resources. It's they made it out of parchment, but the parchment came a lot of the times from fabric as well. And during the Revolutionary period, because they were so short on fabric, because all cloth needed to go to war efforts, needed to go to uniforms, any scrap of fabric they called for donations of rags and other things so that way they can melt it down and then to extract the fibers to make paper and other parchment at the time. So
Animal skin.
and animal skin as well. So
It's the term sheepskin.
exactly. And so that's why a lot of times this paper lasted so long because it is organic materials and why these materials last for so long. It's because of the material that they were made of, which is really interesting. So is there anything you want to add here, Ed?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot. One of the interesting things when I did the research on this, and I did write a book about Stryker's Gambit, that's what I call it. And it was like a chess match, and that's why I use that term. But this is the Somerset County Troop of Horse. This is not the Middlesex County Troop of Horse, which was Nixon. That's this type of thing. But the Somerset County Troop of Horse, they were combing the area and just accidentally, they were coming up past Berrien's mansion, and they were coming up the hill on what was called Rocky Hill Road at the time. And they were informed that the British were moving along. This is coming, Cornwallis, after he got over the bridge and everything, and came up the hill and then was headed from Kingston towards New Brunswick, that some of the wagons broke down. And so John Stryker thought this would be a great time to attack the British, harass them, because this was a militia unit. So they weren't going to directly fight them in a hand-to-hand battle. What they were going to do was be a hit-and-run type of thing. So he had 20 militiamen on horseback with him, 20. And there were 200 British with the wagons that broke down near or right at 10 Mile Run. The problem with pinpointing it is 10 Mile Run crosses Route 27 two places. And so I had to choose which one for showing where the action was. So I picked where the bank is, where New Road meets Route 27. And right down in there, and there's a little walk bridge right next to the road. And in that area there, that's where I have the battle, having the skirmish fought. The reason that I picked that place is because, you know, the author John Updike?
Yes.
Okay, well, his relatives were in Princeton, Dutch farmers, the Opdykes. And the Opdykes, they have an account by one of the Opdykes who ran the farm there of the British and the wagons breaking down and where 10 Mile Run is. So that account I sent to David Hackett Fisher, because I said, your map is wrong. You have the skirmish happening down in Maidenhead, which is the old name for Lawrenceville. And I said, as far as my accounts indicate, it happened right at 10 Mile Run. And the newspaper accounts from Philadelphia at that time were saying 10 Mile Run. So I gave him all the things, and he changed his account in his next edition of his book, Washington's Crossing. The problem was he didn't get the maps changed. So he's got the account showing it happened in South Brunswick, okay, on the border, Route 27, but the map shows it happening in Maidenhead. And I said, well, okay, 50% we won. So it was a 50-50 draw. But he thanked me profusely, and I helped him on some other things too that he had in there. But anyway, the other story on it is I found a descendant of John Stryker living in Kendall Park. And he lived right near where I'm living now, on Warwick. And I had him all lined up. This is with Seal Leda. We were going to reenact this. And Seal got these reenactors to come to where the bank is. And we walked down into the ravine there. And they're looking at it and so forth and seeing what they can do, et cetera. And I told them, I said, I have the guy who can be on horseback to be John Stryker. Now, this guy that I found was a little runty guy, okay? And the sword would probably be taller than he is. But anyway, I had it all lined up. Well, anyway, by the time I wrote this, he moved to Pennsylvania and I lost track of him. And that was the end of that story. And Seal couldn't get the reenactors to do it because it would have to be in the middle of the night. This happened at night. And so the reenactment wouldn't really work out.
Kevin, what's up next? What do you have?
This is our last topic and one of your favorites. This is South Brunswick's story of the road to Monmouth, which John alluded to earlier. And the text for this reads, George Washington and his Continental Army used 3 roads in South Brunswick Township, also known as the South Ward. While making their way to the Battle of Monmouth, they arrived in Kingston on the 24th of 1778. By using a short stretch of Route 27, aka the King's Highway over the Upper Road. The next day, leaving their tents behind and traveling light, they marched along Ridge Road, which was the drier route to Cranberry. They spent the night at Long Ridge Farm. On the morning of the 26th, American forces of more than 6,000 continued along Ridge Road until they reached Crossroads, also known as Dayton, where they turned southeast onto George's Road and made it Cranberry late in the day. Following day, they headed towards Englishtown and Freehold. On June 28th, the Americans faced the British at the Battle of Monmouth. And so this map here is from 1778, which is also from Princeton University. This map is called Province of New Jersey, divided into East and West, commonly called the Jerseys. And so it's a really great visual of, if you see Princetown, Maidenhead, Kingstown, and you could see some dots for Nassau Hall. And then right as the curve of the word Middlesex goes up to the right, you can see the word Longbridge, which denotes the area that Longbridge Farm covered. And you can see the lower road and the other roads that went through, as well as Cranberry. And this map shows all the way on the bottom right. You'll see Freehold and Monmouth Courthouse, which is really interesting to kind of show a sense of scale about where they were traveling from, knowing that Longbridge was present on maps from the time. It's just really engaging. So,
yeah. The thing that I would add to it, and it's intriguing, I went with a class from South Brunswick High to the Battle of Monmouth site. I think it was last month. And the kids were most excited when we got into Dayton, Crossroads, and I pointed out that Thomas Wetherell was paid by George Washington for whatever reason, I don't know exactly what, at the Wetherell Tavern. And then I said, of course, they're looking around. I said, the Wetherell Tavern is not here anymore. Wawa took its place. They got all excited. Whoa, Wawa, whoa, they couldn't relate. And it was a big deal. And it was probably the highlight of the trip. Anyway, the mystery about this is Washington is going on these 3 roads, not to get to the Battle of Monmouth yet, but to get to Cranberry. Spelled in those days Cranberry. The people in Cranberry didn't like it, wasn't sophisticated enough, so they voted to change it. So the spelling that you have today is because of the snobs in Cranberry. They wanted to change the name of their town. But anyway, he stayed at Dr. Stite's house overnight, and he had already deployed about half his army to harass the British who were coming up towards the Freehold area and then to where the Monmouth Courthouse was. And that's where the battle took place. But the most intriguing thing about it is they still don't know to this day exactly what route George Washington took to get from Cranberry to Englishtown. They don't know the exact way. And so that's up to speculation. And if anybody finds out, please tell me so I can pass that along to some people.
If I'm not mistaken, the Battle of Monmouth was the last large conflict
In New Jersey.
in the North
Yeah.
in the war. And I think about 1,000 soldiers died that day on both sides. I think it's both sides.
No, not that many. But
Because it was very hot.
the thing that you got to remember is more died of heat prostration than
Yeah.
getting shot.
Yeah.
And mainly the British, because they were wearing the uniforms and the equipment and so forth like that. I think another interesting thing is Washington ordered his men to leave the tents behind. In other words, in Kingston, if we're traveling light, you don't need the tents, leave them behind.
And the backpacks.
And the back,
And the jackets.
right, we're traveling light. And of course, it was rainy and miserable weather, and they could have used the tents, but they toughed it out. But that was one of the highlights, one of the keys of the American Army. They toughed it out. The
That
British,
comes out of.
took their time. They had their tea when they had to have their tea. They hesitated when they shouldn't have hesitated. They hemmed and hawed. They did this, they did that. And finally they got tired of it and that was it. But the thing is, once we had that council on horseback and Washington turned and wintered in Morristown, and we knew it was going to be a long war, we knew we were going to win. When I say we, there were a lot of people back in those days that didn't have a clue. Back in those days, guess what the percentage of people was that supported the war? The American side. What percentage of the population?
Well, I think what's the name?
50%?
No,
Anybody else? This is an auction. You can bid.
30%.
Excellent. 33%. So if you take 33, 33, 33, that was it. So those against it, your Tories, ardently against it. Most of them ended up in Canada or back to England. And here's another interesting thing too. You know New Brunswick, Canada? Where did New Brunswick, Canada get its name from? The Tories in New Brunswick, New Jersey. They took the name with them and called that area New Brunswick. But anyway, what is the other third? The other third are your fence sitters, the people that didn't take either side. In that would be the Quakers and also the people, they have accounts in the Battle of Trenton. Now, the British had it, the Hessians had it, and so the people would put a red a ribbon or kerchief or whatever on their door to show that they were loyal to the king. When the Americans came in and George Washington, those fence sitters changed it to blue, and they put blue on the doors. And then when the British, when Cornwallis came back in and Washington had to go across the Assunpink Creek and be on the other side, they changed it to red. So those were your fence sitters, and that's about 33% of your population. So he never had 50% of the population until they won the war.
I want to make a comment about some of the maps, that a lot of them have Nassau Hall on them. As a
That was a big landmark.
point of reference. I mean, they mentioned the town, they mentioned the rivers, they mentioned the roads, but very few buildings.
But-
And
And Nassau Hall was, at the time, for much of the Revolutionary period, at some point, was the tallest building in the
One of the biggest buildings.
This was the
At the
biggest
time,
building
it
in
was,
the Northeast,
it was
yeah.
the tallest building in
Yeah.
the colonies
At the time.
at a point, yeah.
Right.
So that is our science. That's our story that we have so far. And we have a lot of future goals for this, and this meeting is part of that. We want to help brainstorm future sites in South Brunswick that we feel could get a sign similar to this. Could be from any era, and we want to help develop that signage into something that is digital and exciting going forward. We also want to make a more digital map that is viewable online that shows you where these signs are, where you can travel in somewhere in South Brunswick and go walk around and find them. And again, that these signs, what's great is these signs are portable. We've got signs here that are hopefully going to go on the Freedom Trail to start off. They also mention stories about Kingston. As time goes on, we get a spot in Kingston, the sign gets taken out and moved over there. So they're transferable, and that's what we really like about this.
The issue when you put the signs in the ground is safety. Well, the Freedom Trail has a parking lot and it has a walking path. So students could walk, adults can walk and be safe. You couldn't put a sign, for example,
On Route
Wawa
27.
on the sidewalk because
Too much congestion.
But we could have a sign on George's Road by Four Seasons, because there's a walking trail alongside George's Road.
And that brings us to this topic. I have a list ready to go.
Oh,
So hit me with your ideas.
Well,
I also got my list.
Yes, okay,
Was it,
this is the collaborative.
so will these signs be put in the ground by fall?
We don't know.
That's for you guys.
Okay. So the other issue is we had a very interesting thing happen. A middle school teacher was interested in a project about a particular person who lived in the area involved with the Revolutionary Era. And they came to historic preservation and wanted to have a sign celebrating this person. I forget the name.
Aaron
McDowell.
McDowell.
Yeah. And so there were, she had 7 or 8 classes. Each came up and talked about it. What was fascinating to me was getting that generation interested in things that happened in this area long before they were around. And so I'm hoping we get a sign out of that to celebrate that class.
So I will add that.
Yeah.
There was also discussion about a banner at the library as well. I don't know if that got off the ground.
I've talked to them. It would probably look something similar here.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know, what in the conversations about that, in order to honor, like in honoring one person, we just were discussing if we honor one person, how do we want to frame it? Because if people are like, oh, why doesn't X get honored next? That was our question. But it's
We have that next person.
yeah,
It's on Ed's top
yeah,
10 list.
with the
The number 1 list. And around the corner from where I live. And that is John Wetherell.
Yes, if you were doing the veterans of the Revolutionary War, you would be talking about more than 200 people. And for that sign thing, it's obvious that they can't possibly handle that. And that was just the Revolutionary War. The thing that they're concentrating on are the modern wars, maybe going back to World War II. Because I have John Wetherell in. I've nominated him for this is the signs of, they're honoring the veteran.
Right, Vincent.
What's that?
It's Vincent, right?
Oh, yeah, Vincent Wetherell, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, Vincent Wetherell, the son of John Wetherell, who gave up his life. He was imprisoned. He was caught at the battle in New York and imprisoned at the Sugar House, and he died there. But McDowell is the one from the students. I gave them a list of potential things. Then they picked out McDowell. I had nothing to do with that, so that was a surprise to me, but they made a good choice. That's a good choice. Because there is a list of that I have of about 10 people that I would recommend. The problem is we've got to get one from the Revolutionary War, and then you can get another one and another one. But we don't have one yet. And I would say, number one, like we ranked the signs and the event, rank the veterans from the Revolutionary War, and Vincent Wetherell will be the top one. Because he's the first guy in the militia to give up his life from South Brunswick. And that's the ultimate sacrifice.
We have a historic site named after him.
which is I just added that
Yes,
to
so,
the list.
so that,
Yeah.
that's where a sign should
On
go.
the topic of
It's a no-brainer.
geographic locations, I'd love to hear your thoughts on places that you feel should be important. If you have a list,
Yeah, I have another one, which is Veterans Park. It's on Beekman. And then you have the Van Quick, cemetery there.
The
which
Von
has-
Quick Cemetery.
Which has several Revolutionary War soldiers
Yeah.
buried there.
What cemetery?
the Von
Von Quick.
Quick
Quick
cemetery.
burial ground.
But you have another municipal park. It's called Veterans Park. So we should have a sign there.
Okay,
Which veteran gets selected? I don't know.
could be rotated.
Yeah.
Could be.
John, do you know who makes the decisions on these? Is it the council votes for each one?
No, I got the impression, I wasn't there, I had something come up, but, we had Kalen do an update, Terry, you were there,
Yeah, I went to the council meeting. They were just supportive of the signs. They didn't have any particular sign.
I'm just wondering
Maybe-
how they do it. Do you have one person behind the desk and they have a list and, oh.
Are you talking about
this one?
the current wars?
Yeah, I want
I
to
mean,
know
the
the
recent-
process, how they pick the person, because they just had one recently.
Yeah, Jen Poppy, I understand, is the person in charge.
Yeah.
And she would be the one to talk to about how it got selected.
we have the signs, we have the support of DPW to put it in the ground. What I understand is focus is to put it on township property because it's easier
Yeah,
to put it in a place that's safe. But for example, the Weatherall House right on George's Road, magnificent house, has parking. So you get have pedestrian safety. The Veterans Park, safety. I don't know where the quick.
It's like it's
right
on the
on
same
Beechman
street.
Road.
On Beekman Road still. It's also accessible.
on the park and the pickleball.
They're like next to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. The issue with some houses or locations that might be private home is privacy.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is put a sign on somebody knocking on your door, tell me about your house for me.
So,
Yeah,
I mean-
but John, you're talking about the signage that we have been talking about.
Yes,
What Terry and I are talking about are the veterans.
yes, I
And they
understand.
pick out every once in a while a veteran, but it seems to me they're all from modern warfare times.
Well, they're getting
Maybe-
street signs, yeah.
Yeah, and they get a street sign. They already, the street sign is there. They're not replacing it. They're adding one to it, putting it on top. But the thing is, it's 2026. We have these people who were historic notables from the Revolutionary War, and we don't have one up in South Brunswick. And I'm just wondering what the process is and what the problem is. I put in the bid for Vincent last summer.
Getting back to some other potential sites, another thought was Roland Park, which is on the Cranberry border.
Yeah, that's out of the way, yeah.
Yeah, it's out of the way, but why not discuss that march from, Longbridge to Cranberry in that,
On the road.
Yeah, because it
And
skirts,
Roland Park.
it skirts
That's
the
the
very
railroad.
well apart, yeah, and that's close to the Cranberry border,
right?
yeah,
That's an excellent idea.
yeah.
And that again is a municipal park.
Yeah.
And then there's the Heathcote Meadows, which has that large swamp white oak tree that not quite dates back to 1776, but very
Well-
close to it.
It does, because it's an estimate of 1786.
We call it
The shade tree.
Tree.
But if anybody estimates that a tree was born in 1786, that tree can easily have been a little sapling in 1783.
It's very
Which would give
possible.
you the end of the Revolutionary War. And you could call it the Liberty
Yeah, I
Tree.
would put the Heathcote.
I did.
So that's Heathcote Meadows.
By the way, if I didn't even, Terry had to show it to me. It's a little vest pocket park right off of Raymond Road. And it is gorgeous. And it has wonderful parking, big open space. It had to be a farm at one time.
Yeah.
Any other ideas?
Yeah, I'm trying, I think you hit on Bella Point. We need to celebrate or put some people who lived here who were involved in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, well, this is the year. I mean, if it doesn't happen this year,
No. It's like peeling back an onion. Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
So another location, and I don't know if this has been resolved yet, but this has been talked about with the HPC, with the sign subcommittee, is, the DNR Canal area, which is state-owned land. And then you have the Mapleton Preserve, which is sort of in joint ownership with the state and South Brunswick Township. So, I'm thinking some signage would be good there to talk about, the council on horseback. I don't know, because it actually took place in Franklin Township.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you talk about that story other than on the Freedom Trail or if you want to.
Well,
place
now,
a
wait a minute,
signage.
you say it actually took place in Franklin, you're talking about the cemetery where they reenacted?
Yeah,
No, it took place on the road. Washington didn't have time. Remember, it's a council on horseback. He's coming up from the bridge. He's not going to say, guys, let's sort of veer over into the cemetery there for a little privacy. And let's have our council there. It's not common sense. He's on the top of the hill, on the road, with his generals, and to his right is South Brunswick, and to his left is Franklin. Okay?
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying, when I was at the council of horseback reenactment, I don't know if anyone.
Reenactment.
They actually bought land in the cemetery where it apparently quote unquote happened.
That happens all the time. There's
That's
a,
jointly owned apparently by South Brunswick, Franklin Township, and I believe Princeton.
yeah, but that's all fine and dandy, but the council didn't happen in the cemetery, I'll guarantee it. I'll bet my life on it.
Well, I'm not even.
I don't think.
Cemetery there.
The cemetery was there.
Yeah.
It was smaller, obviously, and it was across from the church that we had talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, in other words, you had the church
So
and
it's
the
in
church
general
faces the
area.
cemetery. Yeah, the general area. But the general is not going to get off the road to have the council. They're on horseback and they're right there.
And the British are chasing them.
And the British are chasing them. They don't have time to, well, let's go over here and let's have a spot of tea.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing. All I'm talking about is where we put signage in South Brunswick on land that we own
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
have access to.
Yeah.
And Somerset County on that side blew it when they had the reenactment because they didn't have Billy Lee in it and they didn't have all the generals in it. How many horses did they have? How many horses?
I
Three.
I
How
think
many generals did you have? Between 10 and 12. Okay?
I don't think they could get enough people.
And I asked, well, because I checked on it. I asked, I said, well, what was the problem here with getting all the generals involved? Well, we couldn't get enough horses.
I'm not sure I understand the Mapleton Preserve link to the Revolutionary Era.
No, it's just land
It's just-
that's owned. That's all I'm saying.
I forget, help me out, the big ditch, which goes back to that era.
That's Pigeon Swamp.
Yeah, Pigeon Swamp Park, I know it's a state park, but.
Yeah, that's on the
Back
other
to
side.
that Era,
That's not Mapleton.
I know that,
Okay.
but I'm thinking Pigeon Swamp
Oh, it's another potential site.
Yeah.
as a potential site because it dates back to that approximate era.
Unfortunately, the state doesn't even open it for public use, Pigeon Swamp.
Because
So
it's just
I
not,
know.
it's not the most
It's-
accessible area.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
It's just not like a very walkable
it's not,
location.
it's not
Yeah,
pedestrian friendly.
Which if they build
Yeah.
like bridges or something,
Yeah.
maybe, but
There
um,
are some really nice trails back
and
there.
yeah, exactly. And then again, this topic too extends to more contemporary topics, whether it's another building in town or something like that. It isn't revolutionary period. We've had a lot of change over time in South Brunswick with buildings being used for different areas. So if it's not revolutionary, that's something we also would be happy to consider because we do have evidence of. We do have primary source material. We do have pictures. We do have things of buildings in town from a long time ago. So
Right.
these topics can be more recent too. It can be 1800s, 1900s, 2000s.
Yeah,
It all
well,
applies.
There is a stretch you could do with Pigeon Swamp in that they started to apply to get permission to do the ditch during the Revolutionary
That's
War.
what I'm
So
saying.
while the war was going on, and John Weather was very instrumental in this because he owned most of Pigeon Swamp by that time. And I think, and another thing is you get a woman involved in this, and that's good for the history because Ann Pigeon was the one who sold a lot of the land to the Wetherell family. So, and that's one of the possibilities of where the word name Pigeon came from. Ann Pigeon had inherited it from her father, and she was unloading the land, and I think she gave a little bit of the land to build a school over there, and that's that Fresh Ponds thing. So there is history there, and you could turn it into a sign. I mean, it is a possibility.
understood. Kevin, thank you.
Just trying to think of.
Particularly things that are more recent with the Grange. building.
Yeah, the Grange.
Yeah, the Grange, I'm a Grange member, so,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
that would be great.
that we would help them put up their own sign.
like, in preparation for the 250th, I mean, but certainly a sign at the Grange
Oh, yeah.
would be appropriate.
This is all broad. Like obviously we talked to the 250th and knowing with our limits of being able to make things available, having the amount of 250th material that we do have as a starting point, is good. So getting this list of other areas.
Yeah, how about the first house in Kemba Park?
Oh, the one on Stephen,
Yeah, I think that's the one associated with the actress.
the red one.
Stevens' house? You mean Stevens?
Yeah, I think it's on Stevens.
Yeah, that's the.
No, not that. You're
No.
talking about Colonial. I'm talking about the first,
Of the
Yeah,
more,
the
the
first
contemporary.
person to buy a house in, Kendall Park,
don't-
of the Kendall Park
Yeah, I
houses.
don't know that.
Not the old ones before.
The fifties ones, yeah.
Yeah, the late fifties, 58,
What I
59.
like about the Pioneer Grange is that it's basically an entity that came out of agriculture.
Yeah,
And back then, we were an agricultural community.
yes, right.
So there's that tie.
Huh?
They're the patrons of husbandry.
How about the Jewish Community Center? Over on Old George's Road there, on the other side of one
The
thirty.
Moose Lodge, currently.
Yeah, the Moose Lodge now.
All right.
That has a history.
Yeah,
Well, I think we've covered a lot tonight.
yeah.
But is the goal to get a couple of more signs out during the Revolutionary Wars?
That would be nice. I would just, my question is, I know we have our approval from the council. What is the next step? Because
I thought that the last stuff I remember is we had originally planned 6 signs, got cut back to 4. What was not decided was which 4 go in and where would the other.
I don't think they care.
But-
I don't
I don't
think they're leaving
I
it up to
know
us.
we had said, the last time it was talked to those on the council, and then they would tell public works to go put them in. Just, that was like a little while ago. I don't know what the timeline would be on that. Who reaches out to do that from HBC?
No. Basically, John, you have to talk to,
I don't know.
Ken Bierman. Ken wants to know.
I'm sorry.
Ken, you have to talk to Ken
Oh,
about the
okay.
next step. Yeah.
Because I
And-
spoke to Wayne from Public Works, and he just said, you know, they've got other things going on, but yeah, we have to tell them to do it. So,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, we did.
HBC has to tell them
And-
to do it.
John's gotta talk to
And-
him.
Well, Terry and I, been to a couple meetings with other people involved with the 250th from other towns. And based upon my observation and listening, the primary focus in this town are the library and historic preservation. In other towns, they've been working on this planning for years. And we haven't. So we're a bit of a catch up.
Yeah.
And it's also, and I lots of reasons, but I can't change yesterday. But it's important to get some of this stuff moving forward. Let me reach out.
Yeah, because as soon as they do it, as soon as you speak to Ken and those,
Yeah.
we will be able to.
I'm just
Get those
bouncing
things
off
moving.
different things.
So can I just switch gears a little bit
Yeah.
about going back to scavenger hunt? Because we would like to do one this fall if possible. And having some topics for those areas
Mhm.
would be great. I mean, and we could talk
Well,
about,
thank you
The
for
logic would be the Revolutionary War.
yes. And maybe
It's
we
in
could
the
do
fall.
strikers, that's just a matter of getting people there. And maybe have a reenactors.
I thought Buddhist temple, there, right at the site.
Yeah,
Well, I know,
well, it could be there, or it could be at the Wells Fargo parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've talked to the people in the bank and they're willing to let us use the property.
I would say that could be a
Yeah.
great location right there.
Yeah,
In addition
I-
to others.
I do know the library is planning a full day event in August.
Yeah, I was going to bring my colleague who's putting that event together. I was going to have her come in and talk about it. She's outside.
All right.
Mind if I just go get her? It's a
Yeah.
very significant
coming
event. I'll be right back.
John, we did writings for 10 sites. So
Sorry?
we did writings, Kellen and I
Yeah.
worked on 10. So as far as I know, the maximum we have of signs that have to do with the Revolutionary War is 10.
We have 15 signs we bought. So
Okay.
the issue.
Well, you're gonna have to manufacture 5 more events, because I only found 10. But that's okay, I mean,
But
we
why
can
not
always
have a
find
sign about the
something.
Revolutionary veterans?
But the thing is, you gotta get the first ones up,
I realize that's what.
and so that's the.
And the other thing I would recommend is if you have access to TV, is PBS, the Ken Burns story. It is wonderful. There was a presentation at the high school. There were 300 students there. Two, Ed and Caitlin were there. It must have been weird for Caitlin, who's a recent graduate, but they had a person from the Sons of the Revolution,
Right, right, a little out of shape.
social studies, head of the social studies department, and it was an hour and 15 minutes long. It was excellent. Covered not just parts of the revolution, but what was happening here, what was the role of women, what was the role of slaves. I got the impression back then, if you were 16 years old, you were an adult.
That was the draftable age back then, 16 to, well, they had it 16 to 50 and they actually moved it up to 60. But
It was an hour and 15 minutes.
there was few people for that.
Sure.
Yeah, that was fun. And the kids were great, very receptive. And I got a lot of good feedback, a lot of positive feedback on that.
And the one person who outdid you was a descendant of the Sons of the Revolution.
Yeah,
And he demonstrated how to load and shoot 3 shots in 1 minute.
well, he came armed and dangerous.
Yeah.
Ellen and I, we
Yeah,
didn't
he
have
stood
any
back.
weapons.
We were just.
All we had was words and visuals.
We did good. There was a younger patron who came in yesterday and was like, "Were you at that?" I was like,
Yeah.
And so we're making an impact.
Yeah, it's good. We
Slowly but surely, and by being able to do these kinds of projects, and once things get approved and getting signed in the ground, a more public showing of things, and our upcoming events. Zoe, please introduce yourself and what you were here to talk about.
Hi, for those of you who I haven't met, I'm Zoe Lopez. I'm the adult programming librarian, and one of the most exciting things we have going on here this summer, we received a substantial grant from Middlesex County to host on August 8th a full day, all ages celebration of all things revolutionary. So we are calling this event RevCon 250. It's going to feature reenactments, like a live skirmish drill, period music, a concert for harpsichord and violin. There's going to be a fife and drum corps, numerous history presentations, including ones by our own Ed Belding. We're working with numerous other organizations to bring exhibits and craft demonstrations. There will be activities for children and adults and everyone in between. It's going to be a great day. I encourage everyone to
And
attend.
when is it?
August 8th.
August 8th, yes. And that is a full day event. There will be a beer garden, and as well as food trucks. The Cranberry Inn, who are, of course, of the time period, are bringing their food truck out
Here at the library.
here at the library. Not thankfully serving authentic period.
Oh, shucks.
But it's I'm sure if anyone really wants salt pork and hardtack, they can find a way to make that happen. But we are also working with Laird's Distillery in Monmouth County, and they are going to be
Applejack.
a talk and a tasting of their very historic and revolutionary related wares. So we're very excited for that as well.
That's called Jersey Lightning.
Yes.
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 So that's just something else that we have in the coming months, and it's very exciting. Really, it's an
Exciting.
evolution.
Good job. Let's get that brand.
Yeah, no, it's an ambitious undertaking, but we're really excited by the new things that we're able to do with our new space and the kind of things we can bring to the community.
That's the library. You had nothing going on.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we have a lot of other upcoming events, and our historical society events will take place. Our next one, as you see on the flyers and on the screen, will be on June 24th at 6:30 to 8 p.m. online and in person. This will be called Pathways to Freedom: Understanding Juneteenth in Central New Jersey. As June, one of the major holidays in recent memory, is the commemoration of Juneteenth, and we hope to talk more about what that is more broad, and then shine a more local light about what the Juneteenth celebration and those who were freed from enslavement in central New Jersey over that period of time, what that experiences may have been like. So that's a topic that we are going to discuss next, and I look forward to being able to share that with you. That's going to be very history driven and a little more topical for a historical society presentation, less discussion based. But again, we'd like to invite anyone and their friends who would like to come out. We'd love to continue to keep filling this room and filling our Zoom board as well. And so I'm just saying thank you to those online as well who joined. As we're kind of done with the presentation portion of everything, we're going to hang out and chat and stuff like we usually do. But thank you for tuning in and offering in your contributions. So I'm going to stop the share. And
Does anyone look at anything else? Nobody? Nobody on the Zoom?
no, nobody said anything online, but
Nobody said anything.
we'll continue to.
So did you learn any more history today about South Brunswick?
Very interesting.
And everybody who joined online. Appreciate it.
Yes.
We have these fancy things now.
Yeah.
Let me get you your.
That's the issue for me. Soon and for
Thank you.
and
We'll take out of those. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to end.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.